Hey, everybody, and happy Friday. We got all kinds of fun stuff to chat about today. Uh, we got Lakers and Warriors tonight. Should be a phenomenal game and a lot of fun, and we'll get some people out there. We spoke a little bit about this morning about who had given their interest in both the Big Ten and the Southeastern Conference, and it was the usual suspects. Let's be honest. I don't think anybody was stunned or surprised that some people who wanted desperately to get into the conferences. Um, I mean, you really are looking at it. We also talked about the fact that FSU and Clemson, speaking to people from there. Hey, how you doing, Daniel? Good to see you. FSU and Clemson have interest in obviously challenging the grant of rights at the ACC. They do realize that that's going to be a tall task, but there's every reason to believe that they're going to probably pick up 3 or 4 folks who are out there and decide, okay, let's see if we can give this thing a run. So that's that. We talked, as I said, about the Big Ten and about the Southeastern Conference and who is interested in joining. Now, here's the other part. We know this. Daniel, you and everybody else knows it, that wanting to and getting to is two different things. So we will see how that works out. And we have all kinds of interesting aspects of that coming. Early ratings for Major League Baseball have been fantastic. It seems that the rules have actually, borne well for them. So that's a good thing. As I said before, NBA tonight, you're really getting some really top level teams in the NBA, the stars, the marquee teams, and the NBA couldn't be happier. Amazon is in on NASCAR. NASCAR, their rights is going to be up at the end of the season, and we'll see how that goes. So let's see. We got a question. Cameron, how are you, my friend? Yes, let's finish a segment on the Big East ACC alternate timeline where they were merging. Okay, here's what happened. There was a slow trickle of Big East teams that left, okay, to go join the ACC. There was a meeting between the Big East and ESPN as to an announcement of how much they would be offering. The initial offering from ESPN was not what the Big East liked. They didn't feel it was warranted. So this sounds familiar, right? One size decides. ACC then started their conversations. ESPN said, fine, this is it. John Swofford, who was the commissioner, asked the ESPN, well, look, if we had X market, Y market, Z market, would that make, the number we could get better? And of course, ESPN said, well, yeah, if you can get that. Those, of course, were Syracuse, Pitt, a number of Big East schools. Well, they, meaning the ACC, began to find out if there's interest in joining. Meanwhile, the Big 12 was having problems. And it looked like the ACC the Pac-12 was going to poach Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State. Well, that would have left them in ruins as well. So the Big East started to hemorrhage, as Pitt and Boston and College, Syracuse, and all those schools started to talk about leaving to the ACC. There was what do we do now? Okay. And there was Kansas State. Missouri was still there. Missouri had not left the conference yet. There was Baylor. There was BYU. There was a ton of really good names out there that could have merged with West Virginia and USF in Central Florida and Louisville and a number of schools out there at the same time. Okay, So there was kind of all of this, yin and yang pulling going on. Michael Resco, who is the AAC commissioner, was then kind of parachuted in as the commissioner of what was still the Big East. They literally at that point came up with the name the American Conference, okay, which we now know, American Athletic Conference, because that way there wouldn't be a Big 10 or a Big East. They would sort that all out. Well, what happened at the last minute is John Skipper stepped in when he was the boss at ESPN and gave Texas the Longhorn Network. Well, when Texas took the Longhorn Network to Larry Scott at the Pac-12 and said, "Hey, look, we're going to come, but we'd like to bring our own network." I mean, obviously that was a no-starter from the get-go. So the Big 12 kind of stayed the same. Missouri did leave to go to Southeastern Conference. In Colorado went to the Pac-12, but that was the Big 12. Stayed pretty much intact, and fortunately for the Big East, they didn't have enough oomph to stay with it. So there was a lot of the same kind of Game of Thrones going on between what we now see in the Pac-12 and what we saw in those days in the Big East. So there are many, many parallels, and there's probably PSD for a lot of those schools. They're now in the ACC. And to be honest with you, Cameron, being involved in that, there was a lot of hard feelings. To this day, there are presidents and athletic directors and people who were involved in that who do not even speak to each other anymore. There were a lot of very, very sore feelings after that all went down, and so that was the real beginning of what we now know is of shuffling the chairs as people add teams to the conferences, and there's problems in that. And then you figure what happened to the AAC, right? They're getting $7 million per team. And so when UCF and Cincinnati and Houston were offered money by the Big 12, that was, even though they are not getting the same amount as, the teams that are already there, even if it's doubled, right? That means something to them. That's a good thing for them. So this whole moving from one conference to the other conference has been, there was a lot of the same acrimony with the ACC because, again, the ACC was considered, well, academically they're superior, and that it was kind of funny because those were the football schools from the Big East moved to the ACC to improve their basketball. That was the theory of the case, right? They already had a name brand football team, but the ACC said, look, you can bring your football and that'll help us all, but you can bring your basketball and that will, again, we'll have the best basketball conference in all of sports. Well, it's debatable whether that, they did for a while. They did, outstanding, but at the end of the day, I don't think if they had to do it again, that they would do it again. It just seems to do it. So they had a little buyer's remorse now. So we'll see. I mean, that's what happens when you change conferences is you may think the grass is greener on the other side. Maybe it is. Maybe sometimes it's not. So we'll see. Pardon me for getting some water there. But anyway, we have seen that there's probably, with the Pac-12, where they get it. We don't know what they're going to do. We hear a lot, but I would caution any of you to pay attention. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate just sharing the story. You were in high school when that happened. Make me feel old. No, I'm just kidding. Cameron and Daniel, the rest of the game. What if you were the commissioner of the Pac-12 or the Big 12? If you're Brett Mullier, or the Big Ten, or any of these schools, these conferences, would you be looking to add schools, or would you just be happy with what you have? Because honestly, I believe that this is the height of the contract. I don't think anybody's going to get any more than what the Big Ten got, in future deals. So would you want more mouths to feed if they're not going to bring you any more money? Or would you just be happy with what you got? Because, at this point in time, the SEC's got what they want. I don't think that the Big Ten, is in any rush to move to add some people to their conference. So let's, giving you that, the ability to be a commissioner for the next couple of minutes, would you want to add or wouldn't you? Because again, now down the line, potentially for either the Big 10 or 12 or whatever, they would have the opportunity, right, to do it, but not in this cycle. So they're not going to get any money, even if the Big 12 adds those schools. So, okay, let's see what you got. And that is, okay, you're happy with the Big 12 now. You prefer Big 12 1.0, everything. Being a Kansas fan, you miss playing rivals. That's a common theme, Cameron, and everyone else, is that, look at the West Virginia guys. They would love to play Pitt again. You've got a ton of schools who miss those rivals that, USC and Stanford. That's going to be a rivalry that's not going to happen for a while. You could argue, and many would, in the Pac-12 that the rivalry between USC and Stanford was bigger than the rivalry between USC and UCLA, even though they're in the same town. So you're going to miss your rivals, and yeah, sure. And those are games that people like. Personally, I'm going to miss USF and UCF. That was the war on I-4. That's not going to be played for a while. It's a sad situation. You try to create rivalries, but rivalries being created is a very difficult thing to do. So, you have fun, you do what you can, but at the end of the day, you can't really manufacture that. Over time, perhaps. Maybe you play a team over time, and you get to feel a little, angst for them. You don't want to play them. Or maybe a Cincinnati, West Virginia situation. You don't know. Maybe that'll work out. They're kind of close to each other, so maybe. But I don't know. I think you would be happy if I were the Big 12. I'd be happy with what I have. You got really good teams. You got potentially good, situations. You got Baylor in Texas, TCU. That's a rivalry there. You got I don't know who Oklahoma State would have. Now you're a fan of Kansas. Is Kansas State your rival, or who's the rival? I would assume that, but that's my assumption that it would be K-State. What you said you miss playing rivals. What rivals do you guys miss? Missouri. Okay, you miss playing Missouri. That Missouri's kind of an outlier in the Southeastern Conference right now. They really don't have a rival. And they're kind of, it doesn't, if you look at how the SEC set up, Alabama and Auburn and all that other stuff, Missouri doesn't have a rival, and they really don't. And I imagine that they just play Missouri K-State as a rival, but we're always secondary to Missouri. That's kind of, Florida has that. Florida plays Georgia. That's their rival. Florida State is not really their rival. they don't want to lose to them, but at the end of the day, Florida State's rival is probably more Miami than it is Florida now at this point. But they play them every year, and so it's not like they have missed it. So they get to play Georgia and Florida State every year. But that was legislated through the legislature that they actually had to play each other every year. But now Missouri is, as I say, they're kind of an outlier in the SEC because there really isn't, a school. I guess maybe Arkansas might be there, but there's some schools that don't have any natural rivals in the conference, and that's I don't see why it wouldn't be fun for those schools to play each other and have some enjoyment out of it. I'm not going to get in the middle of the Utah BYU conversation. Those folks, the holy war there is something that they are bitter on that one. So I'm gonna let that one go. But when you have some of these rivalries, it's you want to be able to do it and have fun. Last night, the NFL, who seems to be able to make news even when they don't have anything to really make news about, opened last night with with their schedules, and it's hard to believe that people would want to sit down and watch television to find out what their NFL schedule is going to be like for this coming season. But ratings wise, they did quite well on the NFL Network, explaining to people basically who's going to play who and on what network they're going to play and all that fun stuff. So it was kind of a wild situation. Anybody out there watch that last night? Watch the NFL making an announcement of their schedules? Because I would have to think that most everybody would want to, enjoy something else other than watching them explain, okay, we're playing, the Jets are playing against the Bills on a Monday night football game. So we'll see how that's going to work. Let's see, what else went on yesterday? There was some kind of talk about, who ESPN is flirting with Pat McAfee. And McAfee received $140 million from FanDuel to do his show. And I guess he's not happy with the way that FanDuel's not supporting him. So he's kind of shopping himself to ESPN or someone else. And ESPN seems to like, McAfee. So we'll see how that works out. I don't know that there's going to be, as I said, a lot of people giving a lot of money to Pat McAfee to decide what's going to happen there. It's one of those strange situations at this point in time. You want to make sure that you get what you get, right? Now let's go see if we got ourselves some Twitter questions here too. Okay, let's see. Utah chose not to play a ranked BYU team. Instead, they played an unranked Florida team. In fairness, when they did play Florida, they weren't unranked. Florida was ranked. So there we go. Let's see. The other reason I see adding schools is if they need a lifeboat and only if the Pac-12 can't get a deal. Adding CU brings back an old rival. Adding UA would be a great potential rival for basketball. True. I think you're right there. I think that Colorado and Arizona would, if something happens to the Pac-12, they would make it would make sense. I've seen a number of people who, I'm a little curious as to how long Dion is going to handle, how that's going to work out in Colorado. He has really turned that entire roster over. A ton of people have been left for the transfer portal, and It's really been kind of crazy at that point. So we'll see. But it's hard to change over an entire roster, which he seemingly has done in in this uh, in this situation. And so, how well. I mean, normally in the transfer portal, especially the spring one, which is now in session, it's hard to get guys who are going to, start right over again. And he lost guys. So, and Colorado's coming, out, and they didn't have a very good season, and they didn't have they recruited some, but they didn't recruit much. So let's see how Coach Prime is. He's going to have to do better than just winning 3 or 4 games under those circumstances, because you can't win with your mouth. You have to go out and play the games. So there you go. Well, look, guys, it's been great. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We will see you on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will have some fun with a whole bunch of stuff that's coming up on next week. Tons of stuff. So until then, y'all have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Take care, everybody.